Hey everyone, it's Miss Krista here with another wonderful fun STEM lesson for us to do together. And today we're going to learn about the ocean habitat and the animals that are in there and the adaptations that they have. All right, here we go. All right, what is an ocean? Well, an ocean is really a body of salt water that covers most of the Earth's surface. And if you'll remember, I brought in a globe like this for us a couple of times. And if you look, all this blue, that's all of the ocean water, all of that up there. And as you can see, it covers most of the Earth. And down here, we've got a picture of the ocean. And I would imagine most of you have been to an ocean before, and if you haven't, you really ought to go sometime. They're beautiful. And let's go here. All right, so just like we have layers of an apple, and we have layers of the earth, and we went over both of those this year, there's also layers to the ocean. So here you can see this is the sky with the clouds. The first layer is called the sunlight zone. The second layer down is the twilight zone. The next one down is either called the midnight zone or the dark zone. And down here you've got the abyss. And if you have seen Finding Nemo, you'll remember that scene where there's a submarine down there and he's kind of teetering and all of a sudden he falls way down into a trench, and that's what that is right there. That's the deepest part. So those are the layers of the ocean. And here we can see some of the animals that live in all the different layers. Let me zoom in for you a little bit. In the top layer you can see some coral and fish and sea turtles and the dolphins, stingrays and whales. And there's a jellyfish. And the next layer has some other interesting critters. And I want you to take a look at this because the farther down you get, the more bizarre, I guess you could say, a lot of the sea animals become. And we're going to talk all about that in just a minute. I've got some wonderful pictures of them to show you. So for the top layer of the ocean, the sunlight level, we're going to talk about photosynthesis. And we've talked about what that is at one point in class this year. But if you don't remember, because that's a really big word, it is, here's the definition, photosynthesis is the process by which plants turn water, sunlight, and carbon dioxide into oxygen and food. So, and it turns it into a simple sugar called glucose. So remember we talked about how the trees kind of absorb the air that we breathe out, which is called carbon dioxide, and it gives out oxygen for us to breathe. All right, so that's photosynthesis. And in the sunlight zone, it's the smallest zone in the ocean, but it has the most animals and plants. It gets a lot of sunlight, hence the name. And so photosynthesis, which we just talked about, takes place. Most ocean fish, eels, mollusks, sea turtles, seals, coral, phytoplankton, and zooplankton live and grow in this zone up here. And then here are some pictures of things that grow in the sunlight zone. We've got a seal there. And over here we've got an eel. You don't want to touch those. And here you've got a school of fish in the sunlight zone. And if you look here, you can see rays of sun even coming through. And these guys are in the mollusk family. And I think some of you have probably seen or touched most of those things. And while I have you here, let's see, I have some really neat specimens for you to check out. Okay, here's a starfish that we have here at the house. I'll turn him over. And as you can see, he's kind of lumpy and bumpy and a little dried out. He's got little bits of himself falling off. But this is really the shell for this animal. It's what protects him. And if you flip it over and you look right in the middle, you'll see that hole. Oop, if I can see. There we go. Right there. And that's where he lives. He lives in there and he takes up all the different parts of this shell that he has. Let's see if I can get that to focus. There we go. Sorry, my focus on my camera is never very good. And here's a teeny tiny one compared to the other one. Flip him over. Can you see all the different little pieces of him? There we go. And just like the other one, this guy has that little hole right in the middle. You can see. And these little things right here, they look like little hairs in the middle of those lines. That's kind of what helps him scoot along. They're kind of like a whole bunch of little feet. And this one's different than those last two. Look at how neat that one is. It's almost like he has horns on him. See that? Kind of spiky. But if you flip him over, there's that center part. See that? And if you've ever seen a live starfish, it almost looks like they have a little tongue kind of coming out from that middle part, and it moves in and out. All right, 1 second here. All right, and this is really neat. I hadn't seen one of these until Peyton and I picked this up at a store. This is a dried seahorse. And you can see, I'll zoom in a little so you can see the details a little bit. See, and he's dried out. He's not alive anymore. Look at the little curl on his tail. Can you see that? You see where his eyes are and his nose right there. Got a little, looks like a little ear up there. Oop. We'll flip him over. See the other side of him. See, he's dried out. But it's nice to look at new things like that. And this is a sand dollar. These are really fun to find. My daughter Gracie and I ended up finding a little teeny tiny one of these one time. And there's the back of that. All right, let's move this away. I think we got ahead of ourselves here. There we go. Okay. All right, so here's our sunlight zone. And we just talked about the mollusks and looked at some of those. All right, so what lives in the sunlight zone are little teeny tiny plants called phytoplankton. And they just kind of drift freely back and forth in the ocean water and other bodies of water. And algae is a type of phytoplankton. And here is a picture from a satellite where you can see all this green in the ocean out here. That's all phytoplankton. Isn't that beautiful? And check this out. This is really neat. Some algae is bioluminescent, which means it glows. Let's see if I can get a picture here for you. Look at all that. It looks like stars in the water. Look, you have stars up above and stars down here. And here's a family checking out the bioluminescent waves that are coming in. Can you think of something else that might be bioluminescent that we have up here? Some of you have probably never seen one of these before, but this is a mason jar, and this little thing right here that's glowing, that is a firefly. And back where my family comes from, we call those lightning bugs. And here is what they look like. Look at that. See, he's got this little thing on his back end that glows, and they come on and they come off, and that's their way of finding a mate. They glow and they're like, ladies, we're over here. So this is really neat. Watch this. See how it comes on and goes off? That's what they do. And we don't have these out here in Arizona. We usually have these back east. And again, where my family's from in Tennessee, we have these all over the place. You don't see them quite as much as we used to when I was a kid growing up, because a lot of pesticides have killed off a lot of the population, but you still see some, and they're really neat. All right, here's something else that lives in the sunlight zone. We have zooplankton, and those are tiny animals that drift freely in the ocean and other bodies of water. And check these things out. These are just crazy looking, and you can't see these with your naked eye. You got to look under a microscope. But look at that. Isn't that neat? All these little critters that we can't see with our eyes. All right, so after the sunlight zone, you cross over into the twilight zone. Do 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 do. And the twilight zone, here we go. It's below the sunlight zone, and it gets less light and has fewer animals than the sunlight zone. Some animals go back and forth between the sunlight and twilight zones. Animals such as sperm whale, like this guy down here, swordfish, like that guy right there, isn't he beautiful? And cuttlefish, like this one, live in this kind of a zone. And here you can see, here's the sunlight zone, and the one we're talking about is right here. It's the second level down. All right, if you have never had a chance to see the movie called 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, you may or may not have heard about the giant squid. Now, they're real, but they're not nearly as big as what this guy is right here. This is just pretend. But in the book, or the movie, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, this is Captain Nemo's submarine, and the giant squid attacks it in the story. So, but they're real, and here is what they really look like. And here you can see they're not nearly as big as the last picture. They're actually just like this. So here's a guy, and then you can see how big the squid is. And if you look right up at the top, the giant squid has this huge eye. So if you get a chance, look up some of these pictures later with your mom and dad. All right, so we've got sunlight zone, the twilight zone, and now we're in the dark zone, which is also known as the midnight zone.
And then,
sorry, Peyton's here and he's trying to help. Now, remember I told you the farther down you get in the ocean, the weirder the critters start to look? Well, I'll show you in a second. This is the largest zone in the ocean, and it's also the deepest part. No sunlight goes through it, so it's called the midnight zone or the dark zone. Food is pretty hard to find in this layer of the ocean, so animals use bioluminescence to attract prey and scare predators, and we're going to take a look at those in just a second.
can I tell something?
Not right now. Okay, so here we have, this is the vampire squid, and it really, to me, kind of looks like it could be a vampire, even though they're all pretend. I'm not saying they're real. But look, it looks like a bat with bat ears, and then here's his cape. And it's this creepy looking kind of red color. Isn't that neat? And these guys are so cool. This is a Japanese spider crab. Look at how long the legs are on that thing. And here we have a fang-tooth fish. He's pretty scary looking. And this one's really cool. This is called a blobfish. And you can probably see why. And what's really neat about this guy is he has a face. Look at that. He's got lips and a nose and eyes and even... Oop, about my phone here, and look here, he's even got like cheeks. Isn't that neat? God has made some really amazing creatures. And after the midnight zone, we have the abyss. All right, do you remember this creepy looking guy from Finding Nemo? Do you think he's a real monster or is he real fake? Well, let's find out. He is real. This is called the anglerfish, and can you see how he has adapted to living in the dark waters? Look at that. Okay, you see this right here? That's almost like a light bulb. And when there's no light down there and a fish who's swimming around there sees something like this, it's kind of like his fishing pole. So he dangles this out in front of him, and then just like in the movie with Nemo, when some critter comes and checks out the light, he snatches him up, and that's how he gets his food. It's almost like a light bulb dangling in front of him. Okay, we talked about bioluminescence, and that is the ability of an animal to produce its own light. So there's an anglerfish, and he is able to produce its own light. All right. So here we have the life, not life cycle. This is the food chain of the ocean. And you can see up here we've got phytoplankton, which are eaten by the zooplankton, which are eaten by the little tiny fish larvae, which are eaten by the bigger fish, which are eaten by the even bigger critters in there, like this shark here. Okay, so that's called the ocean food chain. And that's the end of our PowerPoint presentation today. But I do have a book I would like to read to you. All right. Our book today, you can see with the light, is called Seahorse Reef, A Story of the South Pacific. All right, I'm going to try to stand up and get this glare to go away for you. Here we go. All right, take a look at all these wonderful fish that are in this illustration. There's a seahorse just like we had. The waters surrounding Danajan Bank, a double barrier reef in the central Philippines, gets darker as the sun sinks toward the horizon. A seahorse's tail curls tightly around a branch of staghorn coral as its slender upright body sways back and forth in the gentle current. Seahorse hides during the daytime. Even at night, when Seahorse moves around, he never goes very far. He always stays in the same small area. His mate roams a much larger area of the reef. Ooh, look here. A tigerfish extends its foot and glides across the bottom. A black-backed butterfly fish swims and nibbles on the tip of a coral branch. Then the butterfly fish slips under the edge of a piece of coral and settles for the night. The brown and yellow stripes on Seahorse's tail blend perfectly with, his coral holdfast, making it hard for other fish to see him. He can see all around him, though. Now his right eye circles upward while his left eye looks down. Because he has a neck, he can also bend his head up and down as he looks around. Just then, Seahorse's mate swims out from behind a lettuce coral. As she gets closer, Seahorse lets go of his holdfast and swims towards her. See him up there? There they are. Seahorse passes a crown of thorns sea star and brushes by a sea whip. The abdomen of Seahorse's mate is swollen with eggs. The pouch on Seahorse's tail up close to his belly is flat and empty. Seahorse bends his body forward. The movement causes the top of his pouch to open. This movement means his pouch is ready for her eggs. Seahorse and his mate point their tube-shaped snouts toward the water surface and float upward together. The female's ovipositor, a special tube for laying eggs, deposits bright orange eggs into the male seahorse's pouch. In just a few seconds, the male's pouch becomes big and round. Now that the eggs are safely in Seahorse's pouch and have been fertilized, they can begin to grow. Seahorse sinks back to the bottom and holds on to a coral. He rocks his body gently to settle the eggs inside his pouch. Seahorse's mate swims away. Only the male seahorse will care for and nourish the eggs inside his pouch. Look here, it's almost like we've got a Nemo in here. See the seahorse too? And look at all these other pretty fish. Look at all them. Seahorse spends most of his time on the lookout for food. He eats tiny creatures that swim near his holdfast. A school of 5-lined snapper swim nearby. They gobble up animals too big to fit inside Seahorse's tiny mouth and tube-shaped snout. Seahorse uncurls his tail. The dorsal fin on his back flutters rapidly and pushes him upright through the water. The pectoral fin on each side of his head helps him steer around a sea anemone's stinging tentacles, just like with Nemo. Remember that? The gill opening on each side of Seahorse's head opens and closes, pulling water into his body. Inside the opening, Seahorse's gills, shaped like a cluster of grapes, take the oxygen he needs from the water. he is. Seahorse senses a loud crunching sound. Danger is near. He tilts forward and stretches out his neck so he can swim quickly to a branching coral and hide. Can you see how he's adapted to this? He's camouflaged. And that's something that animals in the ocean will often do. They will camouflage themselves so they can hide from predators like this. On the way, Seahorse brushes against the lettuce coral's rough edge. It scrapes Seahorse's skin. Seahorse has no scales. Skin stretches tightly over the knobby edges of the many bony plates that make up his skeleton. When Seahorse reaches the coral, his tail grabs hold and he stays perfectly still. See that? He kind of looks like a piece of the coral, doesn't he? A parrotfish swims into view. The parrotfish is not a threat to Seahorse. He's busy biting off chunks of coral. His beak crunches the coral into bits so he can eat the plants and algae growing on it. Soon the parrotfish will settle in for the night. Slimy mucus is starting to cover his body. It will protect him while he sleeps. Ooh, look at this big guy. Look at that. And here's Seahorse again. Seahorse stays by the coral. Gradually, the color of Seahorse's body changes and matches it perfectly. Seahorse's color camouflage hides him. If he stays for a long time, small bits of brown algae may catch on the ridges on top of his head. That will make it even harder for predators to spot him. Nearby, a small hermit crab with a sea anemone on its shell rests on top of a sea fan. Its pincers wave at a sea snake that swims by. The crab doesn't notice Seahorse. Finally, the crab climbs down the sea fan and scuttles away. Ooh, look here. And look, you can't hardly see him. He's hidden pretty well. A sergeant major swims across a flat sea area nearby. Suddenly, the bottom seems to explode. An octopus that has been hiding under a coral overhang rolls forward and startles the fish. The octopus rises up and jets backward through the water. The octopus's movement has stirred up shrimp and the larvae of the other fish. Look here. See all that? His lower lip, which folds up over the end of his snout, drops open. In an instant, Seahorse sucks in a shrimp and his lower lip flaps back up. Seahorse has no teeth. He swallows the shrimp whole. He sucks in larvae and shrimp until the water current carries them out of his reach. Seahorse's eyes look in all directions as he watches and waits for more prey. To stay healthy, he must eat a few thousand of the tiny creatures each day. Oh, look at this. Look here. Seahorse's babies have been growing inside his pouch for about 3 weeks. During that time, Seahorse has been busy eating a lot of food. This has helped the fluid in his pouch keep the babies clean and healthy. Can you see all the babies coming out? Look at that. Just like a kangaroo pouch. As the babies have grown, the pouch fluid has become salty like the ocean water. The babies wiggle inside fleshy pockets inside Seahorse's pouch. They're ready to be born. Seahorse relaxes the muscle at the top of his pouch until the hole at the top of the pouch opens. Seahorse bends his tail forward and upward. His movement squeezes a burst of tiny seahorses from his pouch, then another and another until his pouch is empty. Can you see them all? And there they all go. Look at that. Seahorse gives birth to more than 300 baby seahorses. Their eyes and snouts look huge compared to the rest of their bodies. Even though they're very tiny, the babies know how to swim. The babies will be on their own, for Seahorse and his mate do not take care of their babies at all. Some of the babies sink to the bottom. Their tails quickly grab the nearest holdfast. Other babies have curled their tails around each other. In a group, they drift about in the water. All of the babies start looking for food as soon as possible. Here comes a big old shark. Look at that. And look who's hiding in there. Seahorse rests after his babies are born. It's nighttime on the reef. Some animals are sleeping, but many are awake. A nurse shark cruises past the lettuce coral where Seahorse is resting. And here's an eel, and he's just finished his dinner. It wriggles halfway out of the hole where it lives and opens its mouth. Sharp white teeth gleam in the dim light. Soon a little fish swims into the eel's mouth, but the eel doesn't eat the fish. The fish is a cleaner. Every night, the cleaner fish eats parasites, harmful creatures, from inside the eel's mouth. This keeps the eel healthy. Suddenly, Seahorse feels a sharp pinch. Something is pulling him. Uh-oh, look at that. What's got him? What is that? It looks like a crab. A swimmer crab has grabbed hold of Seahorse's tail. The crab pulls Seahorse away from the coral. Seahorse twists and turns his body. He pulls free and wedges his body tightly inside the lettuce coral. As the sun rises, the water surrounding the Danagen bank looks blue-green. Seahorse peeks out from the lettuce coral. He sees his mate. There she is. Her abdomen is swollen with new eggs. Seahorse's pouch is empty. He's ready to care for new eggs. Seahorse leaves the coral and swims away to his mate. The end. Well, I'm very glad you guys were able to be with me today, and I hope you enjoyed our lesson, and I will see you guys next time. Love and miss you all. Bye-bye.